Ladies and gentlemen, massive round of applause again for the brilliant Mr. John De Lancie!
Can you hear me? Yes? All right. Let me tell you a couple of things about myself, and then we're going to just do questions, okay? So I have your questions ready. Given with the political climate these days, don't expect anything that I say to be truthful. In any case, I was just in Amsterdam doing, of all things, a rock concert. It was great fun. It was really a rock opera called The Electric Castle. I got the offer a couple of, maybe about 7 or 8 months ago, and my agent said, well, you know, you have an offer to do a rock opera. Should we just pass? And I said, no, why would we just pass? Let me just go find out who they are. And so I went, wow, these are fantastic musicians, and it's really an interesting music and everything else. And she said, yes. You know, this was when I called her back a couple of days later, and she said, yes, John, but, you know, after all, you're going to have to sign now, and they want to hold you down for something that you're going to end up doing maybe, you know, in whatever, 9 months from now. And I said, Susie, I'm 70 years old. Am I waiting for another rock opera? A better rock opera? This is it. This is the one. And it was great fun. So I did it, and they filmed it. I wrote the narration for it. You can see it eventually. My wife and I then went on to Iceland, where we spent 2 weeks in Iceland. Iceland was very nice, except when there's no sun. It's a little bit like being in a gravel pit, which was a little hard. And now we are back in Scotland, which we have visited many times before, and we love Scotland. So I'm really happy to be here. Now, let's do some questions, and because there's a lot of noise, it's going to be hard for me to hear you. But I will repeat the question. Is there some way that we can get a microphone? Yes. And then perhaps because of the accent, for me at least, some an interpretation or a translation. Okay, go ahead.
I'll go to the turn here. I know you've shared the stage with the great late Leonard Nimoy once before. I've seen on YouTube, very entertaining. Did he impart any wisdom or advice given your very popular character from Star Trek?
Did Leonard Nimoy, I'm going to use these questions to give more information. And, okay. Leonard Nimoy and I had a company called Alien Voices. I had directed Leonard in Invasion from Mars, the Orson Welles thing that was done on Halloween, and so we did another version of that, or we did that version for a Halloween show in Los Angeles that was broadcast nationally. And at the end of the show, I asked him, I said, did you have a good time? And he said, I had a great time. And I said, well, I have this idea. And the idea is that I want to create a company that does adaptations of classic science fiction. One of the things is that I was and am very dyslexic, so reading was something that was really hard for me. And where I started to read, when I was around 12 years old, actually, there's a couple of boys, 12-year-old boys out in the audience, perhaps, I don't know, but who are I was signing for today. I said, I always say, oh, how old are you? In this case, I'm 12. I go, oh, do you read a lot? Well, I said, I have a book for you. And it was my first book that I read. I mean, you know, it's pretty late to start reading books at 12, but it was Jules Verne's Mysterious Island. And so I have science fiction is close to my heart in that respect. So we created this business together, and the first thing we did was Time Machine, and then Journey to the Center of the Earth, and The Invisible Man, and I don't know, I forget, Lost Worlds, and First Men to the Moon, and you know, so we did all these things, and then we ended up doing them as television shows. Which was to see actors on stage reading, performing this as a radio show with Foley artists next to us making the sounds and musicians doing the soundtrack. So it was a very unusual type of thing. And then we did live shows and what have you. So to your question, did Leonard impart anything? Leonard, at the time that I met him, was now Leonard Nimoy. And one of the things in which Leonard kept on talking about was tasty morsels. So he didn't want to do anything for a long period of time. The fact that we did Alien Voices for 4.5, 5 years was a long period of time. And so I have taken that. So to give you an example, a current example, the rock opera, a tasty morsel. It took me a couple of months to write the narration, but that's my, work at home. A couple of weeks to do the show. I really enjoyed it, and I'm off to something else. So that's something that Leonard gave me. Okay, next question. Hands up. Yes, yes.
Right, I gotta do this Captain America here.
Yeah.
Hello John, I just want to say, massive fan, I've loved your work ever since you started doing TNG. I just wanted to ask, in 1999 there was the spoof film Galaxy Quest. I know that a lot of the TNG cast, Patrick, Brent, Jonathan, they all loved it. What was your opinion of it, if you don't mind me asking?
I thought Galaxy Quest was terrific. Really, really well done. And I'm not sure whether, as I recall, the people who wrote it, were not they didn't kind of grow up with it. They were writers that went into this world and pulled things out of it. At least that's my recollection. But when I watched it, I went, oh, well, this feels like these people have been living this all their lives. I thought it was really well done. Really well done. Yes, next. Yes.
Okay, we're going over to this person right in the back.
Yeah. You're going to get your exercise in today.
I know the feeling, trust me. Anyway, welcome to Scotland, and hope you're having a lovely time, firstly. And it sounds like that you might not understand me at the minute. My question was, see you and Patrick Stewart. I've heard rumours that you and him may have done some pranks on set of Star Trek. I was wondering if that might be true or not, or if not, what would you like to do?
Oh man, I got about a third of that.
He said he'd heard.
What is it?
He said about pranks on the set of TNG
Were there pranks on the set of TNG? You know, the thing is this, is that when you're shooting a television show, as the guest star has the least enjoyable, frankly, position to have. You are not on the set long enough to relax. When I was on the set, I had a lot of words all the time. As Marina Sirtis said to me once, she said, "You have more words in one episode than I have in an entire year." And so I just did not have time for pranks. I just was going from one scene to the next to the next. And the thing is this, is that I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, and also I've always had difficulty learning lines, so there was a lot of pressure on, and the notion that you would get 2 or 3 shots and then you're moving on was like, I just kept my mind on what I needed to do. There was a young man who said to me today, he said, you know, you had so much, you looked like you had so much fun. It made me have a lot of fun. And I was, oh, thank you, that's very nice of you to say. And then I was thinking about it. Well, that's part of the skill of what we do, but I can't say it was always fun. So, in any case. All right, next question. Yes, yes, yes. What's your question? Come on.
Are there similarities between Discord and Q?
Well, to give you an idea, when I went to do that character, and the person who wrote it and who's created the series, Lauren Faust, she told me a couple of months or, I don't know, a year afterwards, she said, you know, I went to the network and I said, I've created this character. And he's very chaotic, and he's sort of mischievous, and the network, the suits, were going, yeah. So, and she wasn't getting anywhere with the description of this character called Discord, for gosh sake. And she said, well, like the character of Q. And they went, do you think we could get John De Lancie? She goes, oh, well, I don't know, I'll find out. So I did not know that there was that association. And I don't go around looking to play the character of Q all the time. So when I looked at the character, you might not know this character that I based it on, but Oscar Wilde, you should be all familiar with Oscar Wilde. Very flamboyant, his emotions on his sleeve, and that's sort of the character that I based it on. But the real answer that you want is yes. Okay, next.
Question here?
Yeah.
So when you were telling the voice of Discord, how did you react when you discovered the pilot coding was not what you expected the pilot to be?
I put it a little closer, please.
Oh, sorry. When you're voicing Discord, how did you react when you discovered the fandom for My Little Pony was not what you were expecting?
Yeah, I didn't hear the last part.
I said, how did you react when you found out about the fandom of My Little Pony? Was it not
How did I react when to the fandom of My Little Pony?
Yeah, and was it what you expected?
All right, well, I've told this story before. I can put my foot here. I saw the rock guitarist do it, so I can do it. I did My Little Pony I got a call from my agent. We have an offer for you. It's that's how I heard it. I was like, because I'm listening for three things. Well, to be crude, how much? When? Let me see the script. Those are the three things that I need to be able to make a decision. What the name of it was. So they said, and I said, okay. They would like you to read the material right away. I read the material right away. I probably read no more than 3 or 4 pages. And I said, sure, it's a kid's cartoon. Yeah, sure, fine. I went in, I did the show. It took me a couple of hours the night before to prep it. About an hour or less in the booth alone, not with anybody else there, just alone, with people who are talking to me over the speakers who are in Canada and I'm in Los Angeles, and walked away never to think about this again. Because that's kind of how most voiceovers are. You're not putting in that much time, so it doesn't really penetrate. About 3 months later, I go down to my computer in my office. I open up the computer, and in my email box are about 400 emails. And I'm like, oh my God, I've been spammed, I'm really upset. And what are they saying? MLP? Emma, what in the world is MLP, My Little Pony, and Emma? I'm like, oh, well, okay, I got that. And and then I called up to my wife and I said, what do you know about My Little Pony? And she said, well, it's a cartoon for little girls. And I said, well, let me tell you something. These are not little girls that are writing here. And so began my experience of what bronies are. That night, a friend of mine came over, and I told him this story, and he said to me, he makes documentary films. He said, let's do a documentary. And I said, I am not touching this with a 10-foot pole. I don't know what this is all about, but no, 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 no. And I was up then in Vancouver shooting something, and some very nice 25-year-old guys came up to me and said, oh, Mr. De Lancie, would you sign for My Little Pony? I was like, whoa, guys, why are you watching a cartoon intended for 10-year-old girls? What's going on here? And they began to explain, and then this happened to me a bunch of times up in Vancouver. Always a very polite transaction, very back and forth. And my friend, who had not forgotten about, hey, let's make a documentary, and knowing full well how I feel about Fox News, which is a terrible, terrible, not news, a propaganda organization in Los Angeles, or in the U.S., wrote me and he said, I think you ought to take a look at this. And it was a URL to a newscast that Fox News had done. Bronies, the latest in the degradation of our culture. Bronies are a bunch of homosexuals who live in their parents' basement on food stamps and disabilities so they can watch this cartoon. And I was like, oh, and I called them up and I said, we're going to make this documentary. Because that's not my experience of these kids at all, and it's just wrong. And so we made this documentary, which I thought was, in the end, a really wonderful documentary. Yeah. Okay, next. Yes.
Martin Cross. Hello. You appeared in a couple of episodes of The West Wing, just celebrated its anniversary this past week. What do you think your character from The West Wing would be doing in the current political situation?
What would my character in The West Wing be doing now under the current political things? Well, you know what? I shot The West Wing so long ago, I can't even remember what the character is. But I could only hope that he would leave without, he would just leave. There's an expression that I don't think you'll be offended by, but, and I'm sure you have it in Scotland, a version of this, is that if you walk around and shit long enough, it begins to stick. And a lot of the people who seem to be working there, I don't know if they came in as bad apples, but they should just leave. They should just leave. Yes.
Who's that for? Right in the front? Oh, this gentleman.
Just a quick question. Which show would you prefer? Star Trek Discovery or The Orville?
Oh. Well, it's going to come as a surprise to you, probably. I have not seen either.
I think there's a question here as well.
Next.
Hello, John De Lancie. Loved your work as Discord in My Little Pony. I saw Star Trek for a bit when I was little, but never got really into it because, of course, I was little. But I heard a funny story on YouTube about how you trolled someone really badly over a picture of Discord and Celestia.
Okay. But what is your question?
Somewhere it was Toronto Comic Con, the guy said.
Oh, I don't know which, I don't know.
Apparently there was a portion of Discord Fanatic Me that you thought was something else.
Oh, yes. Yeah, okay, right. Now I know what you're talking about. Yeah, it's a bizarre picture. Okay, next question.
Who would you want to...
Yeah, go ahead, Ben.
Oh, I'll come in here. Sorry.
When you did Assassin's Creed 3, did you have to do motion capture for that?
No, when I did Assassin's Creed 3, I didn't do motion capture. What I did, though, is that, again, it was me alone in a booth. They put a helmet on your head, back then. They put a helmet on your head and had two high-powered LED lights shining right into your face. And so we did, you know, I'm like, oh my God. We did the show, we did the recording. And as I was leaving, the casting director was there, and she had a glass of water and a couple of pills. I said, what are these for? And they were like aspirin, turns out. She said, I find that most of the actors need this after they've done a recording. I said, listen, you can keep the aspirin and you can put the water to the side, but if you have a big glass of bourbon, that's what I really could use right now. So, I just finished a Call of Duty. I don't know how many of you do that, but there they did a whole thing on the face, and it was really fascinating. I mean, very, very complicated, like a sphere. You are in a sphere, which is at least this tall, all kind of a geodesic dome, and all along are cameras and lights, and I don't know how many cameras, 100 or 200, something like that, a lot. So, and you're talking, what have you, and it's just doing all of its stuff. So, it was interesting.
Next one here.
So Star Trek is at the heart of it a very hopeful show.
Which show?
Star Trek.
Yeah.
So humanity sorts itself out. We go out exploring into space. And the current political climate, both over in the US and here, and with the destruction of the Amazon forest, do you see that vision happening in the future, or are you an optimist or a cynic, basically?
Well, I'm an optimist who's extremely disappointed. I'm much more, I think the world sort of, I mean, you know, you can make separations, binary separations between types of people and what have you. But I'm a pluralist to the extent that I like living in a culture where there are people of all ethnicities. I like, and one of the things that I get out of it is that I get a lot of different food choices, because I actually like to eat all sorts of different things, and I like to listen to different music, and you know, on and on and on. I'm not looking for, and in my case would be the all-white gated community, who thinks that that gated community feel is going to keep them separate and isolated from the problems of the world. I'm very, I sail a lot, I do long distance sailing, and I'm very conscious of the notion that we are all in the same boat. I would like to think that we will organize ourselves in a better sort of way soon. And that part of that will be explorations, along with the, you know, I don't mind the explorations that go into space at all, but I think that there are explorations that can go on Earth, and so I'm under most, certainly in the United States, I would be considered a progressive.
Next question. Gentleman here.
Hi, so by this point you've been involved in a few shows that have quite passionate fandoms. Do you have any horror stories about interactions with fans?
Do I have any stories about interactions with fans?
Horror stories, so where it went wrong, an interaction with fans where it went wrong.
Are you getting ready to do something? Well, you know, not anymore because I've been doing it for such a long time, but early on, I'm walking down, this is really early on, I'm walking down the street in New York. Again, you know, I feel like I've told these stories, they've a little become like bedtime stories, but in any case, I'm walking down a street in New York in a rather unsavory neighborhood, and the blocks are quite short, and I see somebody coming towards me who's just stepped onto the block, and this is a big guy and really kind of scary looking, and you have your radar up, and I see him, and I sort of, you know, walk in this direction, and he adjusts. And then I go like this and walk in this direction, and he adjusts. And we're getting closer and closer and closer. And I began going, ooh, this is actually getting a little dangerous. And he comes right up to me. And I'm looking up at him like this. And I'm 6'3", so I'm looking up at him like this. And he goes, and my feet are, you know, my knees are bent, ready to go in any direction. I'm thinking, I'm going to get mugged. I'm going to get mugged. Oh my God, I'm going to get mugged. And he comes up to me and he goes, "Are you Q?" And I said, "Yes. Can you bring people back from the dead?" I went, "Only people I like." He went, "Cool." And he walked on. Oh. All right, next.
Hi John, big Star Trek fan. I was just wondering, what are your fondest memories working with Patrick Stewart, and what are you hoping to see for his return to Picard in Star Trek Picard? What are your hopes and expectations for that?
Star Trek Picard. I had dinner. I was at a very small little party on 4th of July, our Independence Day. And Patrick was there, and he said, "You know, I have a television show, and I'm sure they'll be calling you." And I said, "You know, Patrick, I'm supposed to be immortal. Do I look immortal?" Now, I've told that story, right? And bless you, the audience. Somebody in the audience, after that took place, said, no, you could still be on the show. I go, why is that? You are immortal. I go, yeah, but you've decided to make yourself look old so that Patrick doesn't feel bad. So I'm not expecting any call. I don't wait for those type of things, you know. So, okay, next.
From here. Hi there, John. So you've been involved in a lot of scenes throughout your career, obviously, but are there any particular scenes that stand out to you as one that you've really enjoyed doing? Maybe it's because you've got to be able to display a unique talent, or...
Any scenes that I really enjoyed doing, is that what you're saying?
That stand out in your memory.
On anything?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there are many, but you know, one of them which I really enjoyed. There was a movie called Fearless, and it was with Jeff Bridges, and he's sitting here, and I'm sitting here on a plane. And we were shooting in this direction, and it was being shot by Peter Weir, a wonderful director. And I'm just giving you kind of like, oh, this turns out to be, I'm giving you like, the response is this, what a great day this was filming. Here I am with an actor who I have tremendous respect for. He is somebody who, acting is, oftentimes what you say is that you are acting or you are reacting. My training, when I went to drama school, it was not unlike the training that English actors have, which was very text-driven, very focused, very sort of in your face. A lot of words, very specific. Jeff is just the opposite. He is a great listener, which is not something that I'm particularly as good at. So here I am with a wonderful actor, a brilliant filmmaker, and I said to him after we shot the scene, I said, Peter, where are we in the story of this plane and the plane crash? Where are we between now and the plane going down? And he said, well, we're about 8 minutes away. And I said, you know, I have an idea. And he said, and I said, could I show it to you? And he said, well, what is it? And I said, could I show you? Which is also a big distinction in terms of if you talk it, then it becomes this. But if you show it, it's a whole different way of working. And the director said, yes. So they said, you know, action. And I look at Jeff, and I take the phone. Remember that they had phones, and you could make a call. And I put like this, and I put it down. I know, and I just said to him, do you want to, and he goes, no, like that, and I put it down. And that was the whole scene, and it ended up in the movie because Peter said, you called home? I said, yeah. He said, why didn't you leave a message? I said, you know, when you think about it, if I left a message, some people would say it was too much. Others would say it's not enough. I just left it there. Well, it ended up in the movie, and I showed my son the movie, which was a big mistake because he was too young and he started crying and what have you. But his whole thing was, why didn't you leave a message? Why didn't you leave a message? And audiences, when this movie came out, would say, why didn't you leave a message? Which is part of what we do. It's part of knowing sort of where the smoke and mirrors are of our business to allow you, the audience, to do a lot of the work. The same thing is like in Breaking Bad, where you just have to sort of get away. You don't want to muscle it too much. You want the audience to do a lot of the work. So that's to me when it's the most fun. So yeah, you are way over on the sides over there.
I'll come here, then I'll jump across there.
Wow, it's hot in here, isn't it? Oh,
hello.
You're pointing to a fan. Yes. Hi.
I wanted to ask, in your opinion, who would win in a fight, Q or Discord?
Who would win a fight, Q or Discord? I'm surprised because, you know, I have been asked like Q or Godzilla, Q and Batman. I don't know. I think it would be a standoff. They'd be fighting each other, that's for sure. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Next question.
Who are the fans up perhaps here?
Yes.
Yep.
So, my friend and I were looking at your IMDb the other night, and based on your previous work...
Just a little louder.
My friend and I were looking at your IMDb the other night, and based on your previous work, we were really surprised no one ever cast you as Satan. So, if you're offered that part, A, would you take it, and B, what would you like to do with it that you didn't do with Q?
So, I think I understood. If I were offered the part of Satan, what would I do with it? Well, let me tell you, I'm going to take it as a serious question. People think that what you do, in the case of Q, you know, he's playing a god, is that you play a god. But actually what you do is that you play a god with clay feet. The same would hold with Satan. It would have to be that. Otherwise, all you're doing, you know, a god is walking around like this, and Satan is walking around like this. The audience, within a matter of a minute or two, will go, okay, I got it. So you have to find the other human elements attached to it. You know, Satan could be somebody desperately in need of just being loved.
Awesome. Was someone here with a question? Then I'll jump
I think
on
Trump is somebody like that, actually.
I was wondering if you're going to have a major party.
I don't know where you are. Just wave. Where are you? Oh, okay.
I was wondering if you're going to be playing a major part in Star Trek Online.
Am I going to do Star Trek Online?
Yes.
Not that I know of.
Would you like to?
Sure. Yeah, all the way over there. I told you you're going to get your exercise in.
Who is best pony?
What's that?
Who is best pony?
Who is best pony? This is a My Little Pony crowd. This is a... well, who would you say? Who?
Applejack.
Applejack. This is amazing. That's exactly who I would have said.
Okay, next one.
No, you know what? These people over here, they're jumping up and down. Oh, okay, yes, go ahead, and afterwards.
I just wondered, you were saying that you would like to do little things that you really enjoy. What film role or theatre role would you actually like to do?
What would I like to do in theatre?
Or film. So what would be your ideal role in film or theatre?
This time last year in Washington, D.C., I played a part in a play called Vicuña. I actually played a Donald Trump 2.0. Charismatic, bright, and really lethal. It was enjoyable. But the thing is that you begin to exercise those parts of yourself, and it really begins to wear on you. I would love to play a role again that would be not unlike the role in Breaking Bad, where it's much more quiet, much more introspective, with a lot at stake, but where I don't have to have a lot of lines. Okay, next. Okay, yeah.
Well, this is related. I really enjoyed what you did in Breaking Bad, and I just wondered if there was anything particular that you could tell us about, you know, that character or that experience.
Well, when you work on a project, you can tell very quickly whether there's a vibe in the room. And in Breaking Bad, there was the vibe was these people were onto something. I mean, cast and crew were onto something. That it was everybody was at the top of their game, and they were really taking it seriously. Where I made the allusion before that being a guest star is not a particularly happy position because you don't know anybody. It's hard to relax. You just don't understand what the ethos of the room is like. So you feel a need to just get it right the first time. And certainly by the third time, if they're asking for a fourth time, it means usually something is wrong, and as far as you're concerned, it's you. Well, we started shooting a scene. Also, before I get to that, in a regular television show, you will shoot 3 pages in about 4 hours. About 4 hours, let's say. 4 to 5 hours. I started work on this particular scene that I'm thinking about at 10 in the morning and didn't finish until 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So I do my part. We're, you know, action, boom. Okay, let's do it again. Action, boom. Let's do it again. I'm going, whoa, what is going on? Action, boom. Okay, let's do it. And I said, hey guys, are you not happy with what? Oh no, John, we're very happy. And that's when I realized that they were working, which is very different than what you get usually. Usually, what on a television show at least, they're collecting. So they're shooting and collecting. We got that. All the lines are right. We got the right angle. The door closed at the right time. We are collecting, and we've got it. Yes, let's move on. They were working. You know, when you put your hand next to hers, or you know, we liked it when you stepped across. We want to be able to get that. You know, when you looked over to that direction because there was a noise, we want to get that. So they are collecting. Going back to the Peter Weir thing, we are shooting, and in the middle of it, there's the sound people are saying there's a drip. We're hearing a drip. Oh my God. You know, in our house, all in our own homes, you know, there's a leaky faucet and it takes you a week to get the plumber. Here, you've got like 7 or 8 guys that are jumping on that leak because time is money. They take care of that leak. We continue with the scene, and then as we break to go to another location, Peter goes, I want bring the leak back in, and I want to film that, because he's got an idea and he's collecting. And when you see the movie, you go, oh, isn't that interesting? On the plane, when it begins to go, something is wrong, the orange juice spills and there's a drip on the floor. So he's working, okay? Peter Weir was working like in a feature film. Well, these people were working like in a feature film. So that's what made a lot of that difference. The other thing is that as an actor, that's the type of role where you just have to get out of your own way. You just say the lines. You have to obviously believe the world that you're in and what have you. But you do it so that the audience gets to do their work. So you are hitting this, and this, but the audience is filling this in, and that's really when it's fun.
We're back across here, still here.
Hello. I apologise in advance if I word this completely terribly, but over the years you have voiced all sorts of characters like Q from Star Trek, Disco from My Little Pony, Guy who crashed a plane, Breaking Bad, and all of them have their own similarities and differences, but they all have, every actor comes into their own as time goes on, and you're no exception. My question is, how did you come into your own as an actor, and do you have any advice for how others can come into their own as actors?
Well, as I said before, I was very dyslexic. I flunked out of 2 schools. When I was having that problem, which is in the late 50s, very early 60s, they did not say this was a learning disability or call it dyslexia. They said he's lazy, he's retarded, mildly retarded, or slow, and so it really has a bad effect on you. And so I just ended up failing. And I ended up in a little school, a little private school outside of Philadelphia, that my entire class was only made up of 19 kids. Many of them also having problems, but nobody understood it as being that. We had a fabulous teacher. He was the assistant principal, and it was, as I said, a little tiny school. And so he would come in, he had an enormous amount of energy, and he would come in and he would say, "We're going to do Mozart's Marriage of Figaro." Or, "What's that?" And he would get his wife, and we would have to, you know, did a little version of it, and we'd all be singing, and we're going to do Handel's Messiah. And we're like, you know, so they're this tiny little group, but we're doing it. And he came in one day, and it was in the springtime, and he said, "We're going to do Henry V and De Lancie." And actually, I remember he got my attention by throwing the script at me. I was like, "You're going to play Hal." Well, I had great difficulty reading it, but I learned it. I learned it in my sort of screwed up way. I learned it, and I performed it. And I was very fortunate in that the editor of the Pelican Shakespeare's, which was the Shakespeare edition in America that all the schools used, had come to see his granddaughter. And he, after this performance, he went, sought out my father, and said, "If your son has an interest, you should encourage him because he has a flair for this." And that's how I ended up starting to act. And I just grabbed onto it like a life preserver because, frankly, it was the first time I had been told in any way, shape, or form that I was good at something.
Unfortunately, we are out of time now. If you still have questions for John, you can find him at his booth all weekend, all the rest of today and tomorrow. But I think, first of all, hasn't he been amazing? And I think I speak for us all when we say we hope to see you returning in Picard, fingers crossed, as the immortal, looking slightly older Q. But ladies and gentlemen, John De Lancie.